No, we're going to do a kidney series, and we're going to start in reclining butterfly. So bring the bottoms of your feet together, 2 hands length away from your groin. Come back down to your elbows. Lay all the way down. No, don't lay all the way down yet. You can let your head drop back if it's comfortable. If not, keep your chin by your chest. Close your eyes and just take a full inhale. And then exhale, sigh out through your mouth. And just allow these next couple of breaths to help your attention come into your body, onto your yoga mat. Sometimes I feel like I kind of have to pull my attention away from my thoughts down into my body, noticing my feelings, noticing sensations. With a couple of breaths, we often land quite quickly in our body. And from there, in this grounded place, just dedicate your practice to someone who needs your love or just needs some attention, or someone who's passed over. Always picture them living and smiling and joy-filled. Let your elbows slide out to the side. And now come all the way down to the ground. Take your thumb and your index fingers and make like a little a diamond shape. It's a very roundy diamond shape. And bring your hands, your mudra down to the ground, connecting your hands to each other and then sliding them right to where your head and the ground meet. Again, take a full inhale. And with your exhale, just soften into this new shape. So as I said, we're focusing on the kidneys and the urinary bladder. And this kidney pair is ruled by the element of water. In our whole body, the kidneys and the urinary bladder have a lot to do also with balancing out the yin and the yang in all of our organs, in our whole body, as well as in our life. And we can think of it a little bit where when we have a good amount of fire together with a good amount of water, we've got movement and life, and it's not so hot that the water's evaporating, but it's not so much water that the fire's being put out. There's something where it's a collaboration, this real life-giving, energizing, dynamic pairing between yin and yang. So no wonder in traditional Chinese medicine, the kidneys are said to be the root of life. And let's transition to butterfly. So stretch your arms straight up from your chest to the ceiling and then lift up your feet. You'll find this beautiful, that echo of that diamond shape in between your feet. And then just dive forward, coming right into butterfly, where your head is dropping towards your feet. Your knees are dropping to the side. You can do whatever is more comfortable, relaxing your arms on top of your legs to make them heavy, or even sliding your hands underneath your knees. Get to know this shape today, right now, by taking a couple slow breaths, full breaths. These moments where I'm silent, you want to notice how you talk to yourself or what comes into your mind. And instead of trying to shut things out, instead just pull it in a little closer, like you're mentally hugging in whatever it is that's coming up. And letting it be part of your practice, maybe not in the front part of your mind where you're paying lots of attention and rethinking and kind of pontificating around the subject. Just bring it into your practice and let it kind of soften and sink into you. With this imagination that our body and our humanness and our aliveness is such that it can take and transform and change things when we're inviting things in. Water is a substance that, it's hard to contain water. It kind of infiltrates and seeps out and finds gravity and flows away. And you know that the more movement there is in water, the more life you can feel in the water. When places lose, like when they're dammed up or something, and lose the movement of a river coming in or leaving, then the water can start to get still and stagnant and stinky, which is great for lotus flowers, but not so nourishing if you think about wanting to be refreshed and renewed by water. See if you can let your jaw soften a little bit. Maybe even let your belly be soft. In our kind of new age conversation these days, it's very easy to take up kind of very materialistic reactions to energetic things. So, for instance, when we start practicing yoga, when we start deepening our relationship to what we're feeling ourselves, we might notice that we actually feel more from all other people around us. And so some of this talk is like, oh, I want to armor myself from other people's energy. But I think we need to take a completely different route where it's like, I want to have the life forces to digest and transform these different energies that come towards me. With your next inhale, start to roll up and place your feet in the ground. Feels that lion's breath is a good thing to do today. Keep the body full of movement. Lift your hips up, drop your head back if it's okay for your neck, or have your chin to your chest. Stick out your tongue, look at your third eye, and with a whisper, roar like a lion or a lioness. 2 more times. Inhale. One more time. Inhale. And bring your hips back down to the ground. Little grace or little dab. Wipe your mouth. Get a wiggle on. And we're then moving to dragonfly. So let's turn long ways on the mat. Stretch your heels out. And we're going to do the side, so stretching the side body. So let's slide our left arm down our left leg. You might find that you're relaxed enough that you're flexible enough or have the right anatomy, whatever, to hold your head. Maybe yes, maybe no. If not, you can put a bolster underneath your elbow, or just let your arm relax and grab onto your toes instead. Inhale, stretch your right arm up to the sky, and with your exhale, drape your arm over your ear, maybe allowing your fingers to come to your left toes, maybe not quite reaching, and just draping your arm over. So you want to let your body soften and really be yin in this pose, but you notice that you have to maintain a little integrity and yang element to keep your chest open so that you're really stretching your intercostal muscles and all your side body really here on the right hand side. This kind of, I feel like it goes along together with this idea of trying to like armor ourselves against bad feelings or, defend ourselves energetically. Like, again, it's just this emphasis on war talk, but it has this very kind of fixed idea of what a human being is, instead of these collections of processes and movements and a myriad of different cycles that interact and really lend our body creativity. When we get some images of how we are, we can kind of make this mistake of making that image hard and fixed. I am this way and I'm always that way because I was this way in these relationships. Because this is how I've been, this is how I'm going to be. And this is pretending something's fixed that really doesn't have to be. Maybe notice if you can soften or drop down a little deeper into the pose. Or if your chest collapsed, just reopen your chest and your heart up. Then inhale, lift up. You can take your hands to the middle of your thigh, do a little whoop, pooty bop. Or you could do some expression dance moves, nice one. And then take the other side. You're going to slide your right arm down your beautiful right leg. Catch your head. And then stretch your left arm up to the sky and drape your arm over your ear. Maybe this side is different than the other side. Not maybe. Definitely this side is different than the other side. So the kidneys have a lot to do with this water and life and movement. So all of the different cycles that we have, whether it's like from a cellular level on the Krebs cycle, or whether it's like the monthly cycle of the woman's mens, or whether it's even a much bigger cycle, like moving through the stages of life. The kidneys are very intimately connected to us, our cycles, even the cycle between life and death. So it's, back to the root of life. It's movement. Just like we can't stop time. It's always moving. And so in that way, it's then not so surprising that the kidneys have this intimate connection to will. And we're more educated around this, the very, yang will, like you need to have the strength and the power and the discipline. And then you you fight into it and that's your will. And the yin will is often described as this more reflection capacity, or what we see revealed through our reflection. We see our yin will, this magical working of our unconscious that brings us to situations that give us challenges to become ourselves. This is the will that you won't see unless you try to look at it. Maybe notice if you have a little bit a place to soften, or a place to open up your chest a little bit more. When Amelia, imagine your left buttocks is heavier. And then with your inhale, lift up. Again, bring your hands mid-thigh, shift your weight forward, lift up your booty, or stretch your legs out, lift it all up. And then right down the center. Walk your hands forward. You can, again, bend your elbows and maybe catch your head. This is also another great place for a stack of books or a bolster. Beautiful. Maybe I misnamed my yoga. It shouldn't be unity yoga. It should be nerd yoga. Still curious and wanting to learn everything. Take those full first deep breaths in the pose where you get to know it. See how it's showing up today. So I had this very interesting idea pop into my head when I was thinking about class, and when I was thinking about this yin will. And one of the exquisite and exciting things about yin, I don't know if you heard the horse on the tape. We're not in the 70s or 80s, but there's a horse sound outside the window. Back to this interesting thought. So we see the yin, this exciting thing about yin is that it includes mystery. And so the unknown, by definition, is yin. So as we move into a time where this is being called forth more, I think it's so exciting, because there, if it's unknown, it means it's full of stuff we don't know. How exciting, right? So that means it's full of all these new ideas or perspectives. And my thought was this: that just like we need this capacity to reflect, to allow us to see what our unconscious driving forces are, or, you can even think of it as trying to notice the karmic threads or patterns. Then when we have an impulse to really change something in us, like change something deep, an addiction or a habit that you want to change, or a relationship that you want to transform, or even a work that you want to change, one of the hardest elements to access or to get at, I believe, is this: how we change our own perspective. How do we change our perspective of ourselves without, like, can we picture ourselves without that habit, or without that handicap, or without that partner or job or whatever it is? And that this work of lifting our imagination up into our wakefulness, into our creative thinking capacity, that this is part of I think a yin will as well. I could be mistaken, but just hear me out here, because it is this birthing process where we have to be willing to recognize that which hasn't been here before, this part of you or this part of me that is totally new, and recognize it so much that we actually bring it to life. Create the container, which is this imagination of it to be a reality in the world. Start to walk your hands back towards you. And maybe you want one last third little lift. And then just gather your legs together and wrap your elbows around your knees and bring your forehead to your knees. Squeezing out and just giving yourself a little bit of a hug. But in this creative imagination, it's this witnessing of who you could become that I think is allows this yin will, this quiet, unconscious will, to start to help you create it out of your life and your choices. Inhale, lift up your head, and it's time for a Sphinx. So stretch your legs out, elbows right underneath your shoulders, or maybe slightly in front of your shoulders. Let your hips be heavy. You notice how much of your body can relax and get soft, but you have to keep some part engaged. So you keep this shape, for instance, and you might even lift up your head. You can let your shoulders drop down your spine. There's such a natural repulsion right now from all the trappings of patriarchy and all these things that we lump together with it. And we may have this thing of like, oh, that will, that push for power, that kind of will force is so destructive that we kind of then just say, oh, I'm not going to really engage with so much igniting the will. But this inner will is missing in so many elements when someone feels that they are a victim of their own life. And of course, there are so many people in really hard situations and in really dire circumstance. That I wish I could change for them. But still, even in those situations, it helps nothing to blame the perpetrators, to keep lifting up that relationship. We want to come to this spot where we find this quiet, creative power inside of us that is will force, that is part of our becoming and our becoming more like ourselves in uncharted territory, because nobody has ever been you before. You know, it's a little bit like when we see a play, we can go, oh, wow, look, all those beautiful actors, what a great job they did. And totally forget about the person who did the lighting, who did the choreography, who did the costumes, who did the makeup, who wrote the play. You know, it's like, oh, the actors are so wonderful. And I feel like we have this, like, as a dirty habit everywhere. So we kind of nearly treat ourselves like actors in our own life. But we're all of it. We make the lighting, we, you know, rewrite the script. Now, walk your hands back and we're going to transition straight into seal. For some people, this is possible. For some people, it isn't. Some people, even I know, might like to do this. You can have a wider placement of your hands to make the back bend a little bit more soft. Or you might discover that your seal today looks exactly like a sphinx. Feel your breath full, helping you explore the shape today. And then let's take 10 breaths here. You can count quietly to yourself. 10 long full breaths is usually a minute, which is handy to know if you're ever stuck somewhere without a watch and you want to know how long a minute is. I mean, wouldn't it be cool to have everyone know that they are a source of immense creativity and power, that we make our life, we create, we participate in our life, we co-create a life. And then lower it down and wiggle your hips side to side, noticing that this rocking just kind of releases. It also helps move the feeling of fragileness And then we're going to move into saddle pose. So crawl up onto your knees, come to the front of your mat. And you can separate your heels and sit your hips down in between. Or in yin, I like to often actually sit on my heels. So it's very much like fixed, like hero's pose. And then come back onto your elbows. And if it's there for you, you can go all the way down. Or if you're on your way, you can drop your head back and then hang out here for a little bit and then take it all the way down to the ground. Once you're on the ground, you can grab opposite elbows over the top of your head. Allow your next couple of deep breaths just to get to know your pose here today. So recently I got a question of destiny, I guess you would say, for someone else. They were looking for advice. And the issue was that a good friend of theirs, a woman, was under the spell of her husband. And I think it's incredibly it's so complex why people end up together or stay together or need to be together or don't need to be together. You know, I don't think there's one pattern that's ever going to fit everyone. But this concept of someone having a spell over someone else is, I think, a lot of where we come back into this kind of victim and perpetrator roles, when really it's both are victims of the situation most often. And that a spell only works if it's like received as a spell, if you believe in the magician. And that none of us can actually break the spell except for really the person who's in the enchantment, so to say. I mean, this is the crazy part. Of course, we still have to try. But that each one of us is agreeing to our story, is agreeing to working through certain karmic relationships, even if they have no belief in karma or idea around it. And the only thing we can ever do for another person is really, you know, to empower their capacity to create or empower them as a human being to be themselves. You know, there's many pictures or concepts around healing also that it happens the same way. Like nobody's going to heal you if you don't want to be healed, if you're attached to being sick that way. Now, either come up one elbow at a time, or if you feel like you're stuck, you can always try rolling onto your side. It's just good to know there's multiple exit routes. And then we're going to cross our ankles. And slowly, with your knees bent, just roll your spine down to the ground. And then lift up your knees, bring your knees level with your hips, and braid your right thigh over your left thigh. Maybe your toes twist around all the way for twisted root. You can place your left foot on the ground, lift up your butt, and slide your butt to the right, and then drop your knees to the left. Your gaze comes back to the right, or you can be looking straight up at the ceiling if it's easier for your neck. Take a full inhale. And with your exhale, just sigh out through your mouth, feeling your whole body respond. Our will force is part of our will even to live, our liveliness, coming back to our kidneys and the root of life, this balancing between fire and water, between yin and yang, makes for a dynamic, life-giving dance. You know, this is a little piece of a much longer story that maybe you've heard before. But about 12 years ago, give or take, I had an experience where I was listening to a lecture actually about codependence. And I realized it was like, it like hit me like a slap in the face kind of thing. Like, oh my gosh, like my parents aren't actually like practicing alcoholics. They didn't have any of that, but there was a pattern I recognized that I had taken up where I recognized myself as an enabler of that role in a codependent relationship. And as soon as I recognized myself in that, I recognized myself in like, it was 3 relationships out of many, just 3 that were very clear and one of them was a business relationship. One of them was just a friendship. Another one was an intimate relationship. And it was like, once I had that insight moment, or that like upset me free or wake me up moment, then I really had to go into myself and repicture how I would be in relationships. Now hug back to center, unwinding your legs. And you bring your knees back over your hips. And this time bring your left knee over your right knee. Maybe your toes twist around, maybe they don't, not a big deal. Put your right foot on the ground, slide your hips to the left, and let your knees drop down to your right. Take your gaze to the left, letting your left hand be lower than your shoulder. Take a full inhale. With your exhale, just sigh it out. But this moment wasn't quite the same as like breaking a habit, where I really built up this imagination inside of myself of how I would be without it, and what I feared losing without a habit. But with this moment, it was like I saw it and it lost its power. It just kind of like sure, some patterns I had to work over years with, or, I still am a beautiful work in progress. But the power that those relationships, like, it was just so crazy, and it left me freed up and energized. And part of what gave room and birth to new relationships, healthier relationships, or relationships with different problems, was that I could take this opportunity and go back into myself and imagine, okay, how I could be different in these situations. And I could imagine it in the situations that were past, but that imagination allowed for a fertile ground for that to actually become true in my future. We are sources of life. We will things into becoming, both through the might of the yang, but also the surrender of the yin. Take another full breath and then start to roll your way back to center. And unwind your legs and put your feet on the ground, lift up your hips and just roll your lower back down to the ground, letting your sacrum drop last, and then stretch your legs out. Turn your palms open and lift up your chest, pop your chest up, squeeze your shoulder blades together and pull your shoulder blades down your spine, and then let your ribs drop back down to the ground. Close your eyes and let yourself be in Shavasana. Feel the ground solid below you. Instead of trying to dream away, allow your attention to remain in your body. You can witness how you're feeling, and you can observe or listen to sounds all around you. With your next inhale, invite your breath to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes and smile. With your next inhale, stretch your arms long up over your head, reach your feet away from your hands. And with your exhale, curl into a ball. If it's comfortable for you, roll onto your side. Reborn every day. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Take our hands to heart center. Root down to the earth to feel the freedom to lift up towards the invisible, the stars above you. Now lift up the face of the person you dedicated your class to, perhaps. Invite it all in. And let's close with one Om. Empty your breath. Let's take a deep inhale. Bring your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow forward together, we say, Namaste. And so much love. Woo! Thank you.